So anyways, the night before actually, we did the, what is that dance called? It's like...
The baby mama?
No, we didn't do the baby mama dance because Zach wouldn't do it with me.
Ugh.
But we...
I would have done it with you.
So annoying. Dang it! Let's get pregnant.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Wait a minute.
Just to do that. Just for the dance.
We can be surrogates.
Yeah. That'd be nice. I mean, I enjoyed being pregnant. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
I had a good
I'm Elaynna.
And here we are best friends, we are moms, and sometimes we're a little bit of a hot mess. So if you can relate to that, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about our labor and delivery / birthing stories. We both have different experiences, and I haven't heard yours in a while, so I'm actually really excited. But yeah, go ahead and stick around if that sounds interesting.
Before we get started today, we just wanted to take a minute to thank every single one of you. We appreciate you. We seriously appreciate every subscriber, every like, every view that we have. We don't want you guys to feel like we don't notice you. We do. We even text each other saying, oh my gosh, we got another view, we got another like, one more subscriber. And we are so thankful for all of you.
Yes, we are. 20 subscribers was our first little mark that we wanted to hit. When we hit that, it's definitely something that we want to celebrate, and we just want to say thank you to all of you.
We love you. All right, Callan, so I know you had a C-section, so what was that like preparing to go into labor or having your C-section?
Oh, okay, well, it was my second C-section and it was planned. How that went about was I wanted to have a VBAC so bad. I wanted to try for a vaginal birth so bad, but as my pregnancy progressed and I was totally healthy the whole time, you actually go through a consultation whenever you tell them that you want to try for a VBAC, and they kind of go over with you your labor history and birthing history with your first child that you had the C-section with, and just kind of get some quotes together, and they'll let you know like, okay, you have only a 20% chance, or you only have a 50% chance. I had a little over 50% chance. But as I got to the end of my pregnancy, I was like 38 weeks, 37 weeks, and I could just tell it wasn't going to happen. I really could. I was like, you know what, this baby, I'm not going to go into labor. And the last thing that I wanted to do was be induced, and then I go through labor, and then I end up having an emergency C-section like I did with my first child. So I just decided, I went into like my 38-week appointment and said, I'd like to schedule for a C-section. I don't feel like it's going to happen. I was still just, they couldn't even sweep my membranes.
Oh, man.
No, I'm just like, sealed tight. I do not dilate. I got to a 4 with my first son, but that was only with the balloon once I was induced. I knew that a planned C-section is always safer than an emergency, and I just didn't want to put my body or my mind through that again. So I also knew that if I was induced and I didn't go into labor on my own, my chances of having a successful VBAC would drop so much. So it would have to be my body did it, or I didn't want it at all. Yeah. So I did. I had a C-section, so there is no labor story for me. I walked my butt over to the operating room. Yeah, there's no really labor story.
Did you go to 40 weeks, or did you schedule it for earlier?
Oh, I went to 40 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so on your 40 weeks is when you...
Yes, on my due date I had him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, girl. So what was your going into labor like? What were you doing that day? Who was around you? Tell me up until going to the hospital.
Okay, so we knew probably at around 30 weeks that I was not going to make it to my 40-week mark.
How come?
I was considered high risk. I honestly can't explain it fully. It had something to do with me and Aria's blood types.
Okay.
So we were having 3 different doctor's appointments every single week.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun. But so it was just a matter of when they were going to induce me. So at like 37 weeks is when my doctor was like, you need to have a bag in your car, ready to go to the hospital every single time you have a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay, because they would send you upstairs to labor and delivery floor or something, or send you right to the hospital.
Right. Depending on how things went, they might have said, okay, you need to go to the hospital.
Okay. So when did you pack your diaper bag?
After that appointment where he was like, okay, you might be going.
That has to keep you on edge. Like, oh.
All right. So at this point, I was a little upset because this was right around the time of one of my friend's weddings that I was actually in. So I was so heartbroken. I thought I was gonna miss her wedding because at that point the doctor was like, yeah, you're probably gonna go to the hospital after your next appointment. But I didn't. Thank goodness, I made it to the wedding. I was there.
That's so good.
Yeah. And so as we got closer and closer to my due date, the doctor, because I had to go to 2 different doctors, a high-risk doctor and then my normal OBGYN.
Right, okay.
And so they were like, okay, well, we need to plan. You're going to go in at 39 weeks. They're like, you're going to go in the night before, and they're going to give you something. I don't know what it is.
Pitocin?
No.
No? No Pitocin? Okay.
Something to help you dilate. And
then, do they stick... It's not, is it a medicine or do they stick it in your vag?
I think it's like something they put up there. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and it softens your...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
I never got that. I got the balloon.
I didn't get that either. We'll get there.
Sorry. Little foreshadowing.
Right. So, and then the next day, Tuesday, they would start me on Pitocin.
Okay.
So I go to my doctor's appointment Monday thinking, okay, this is it. Like, I'm going to the hospital, hype myself up because I did not have a great experience with my first child.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you don't need to go to the hospital tonight. You're already dilated 4 centimeters. Just go.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That is amazing. That never happened to me. That is so amazing.
I get there and I get stuck and I'm like, I can't get
at
water
4?
to break.
You get stuck at 4?
Yes. I was 3 for a couple weeks.
Okay, 3. Oh my. See, I don't even know what that's like because I don't even make it to Hawaii now.
Girl, you don't notice it. You're just walking around with a baby.
It's such a surprise though, is it not? Because every time that I went to my appointments and, towards the end when they start to check, I'm like, okay, can you check? And I'm getting all excited and they're like, no, sweetie, I'm sorry, nothing. And I'm like, nothing? Really?
See, that's how it is at first until you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm going to be dilated enough. I'm going to have this baby. And they're like, oh, nope, you're still at 3.
Oh, damn. Like, okay, I see. You're like, no way. 7 hours later, I'm still at 3.
Right.
Dang.
So they were like, don't worry about going to the hospital. Call in the morning to make sure they have a bed for you.
Okay.
So I had to call at some outrageous time. It was like 6 or 7 in the morning.
Yeah, baby's
I'm ready. I have everyone ready to take Ava. I have our plan. Called the hospital and they're like, we don't have any beds for you.
Oh, dang.
I sobbed.
Oh, yeah.
39 weeks pregnant, ready to have this baby. I cried. I was like, I'm not having this baby today. Summertime.
Let's let them know we were pregnant in the summertime.
Mid-August.
Yes. For both my pregnancies too.
Oh.
So I really cried the first one because with my first one, I was 42 weeks. They're talking about we don't have any beds. I'm going to be 43 weeks pregnant. What are you talking about?
My baby is going to come out.
They're like, no, they're going to come out. No, he's going to come out. It's fine to wait. It's fine to wait. No, this bitch don't dilate.
So they were like, oh, call us back around lunchtime. And so I've given up hope.
Those hours must...
I'm like, I'm not going. I get a phone call a couple hours later and they're like, hey, can you be here in about an hour? We have a bed for you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, yes. Yes.
Like, nice now. Yes. Absolutely, I'll be right there.
So on the way to the hospital, we stopped. We got tropical smoothie because I knew the drill. I wasn't eating as soon as I got there.
Oh, yeah.
We dropped my daughter off, and we head up to the hospital and check in. So, what was it like once you got to the hospital and you're prepping you for surgery? I don't know how exactly it goes. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, I don't know, girl. So we had to be at the hospital at like 6 a.m. on the 19th. Yeah. So it was really hard for me to fall asleep that night. I mean, I know that the next time I come home, I'm going to have my baby.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Knowing when you're going to have your baby. It's like, oh.
Yeah. And you do so much to prepare, and you put together the nursery, and you've been looking at this bassinet for months in your room. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I prepare, I unpack everything. I had that pack and play that's downstairs, my changing station, that was up like in June because
just in case.
I just get so excited. I love bringing life into the world. I really, really do. I don't get the experience that you get. Mine is a little different, but it's just so amazing.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I love my first son, but the experience is different when you know and when you tried for this baby and you knew that this is what you wanted. Because when it is an unplanned pregnancy, it's like shock for the first few months.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know what I mean? So anyways, it's really hard for me to fall asleep, but I did get some sleep, and they told me that I couldn't eat past like 12 o'clock that morning. So, I had Burger King the night before.
Oh, girl, yes.
Yeah.
Burger King fries.
Yes, I know, yes. So my sister Haley came down. She lives about 3 hours away, and she came down to spend the night so that she could just spend the day here at the house alone because she's so excited, you know? So she's like, I don't want to drive down the day of. I want to drive down the day before so that as soon as the baby comes, I can go there.
That's sweet.
Yeah, she was really excited. So, and she actually, while I was in the hospital, she organized my closet.
Oh.
Yeah, she did.
My mother-in-laws came over and reorganized our whole downstairs for us.
That is so sweet.
It was so nice.
You have to appreciate that. So what is that? It's like, almost sounds like a cowboy, the giddy up.
Oh, the get up.
Yeah. So we did the get up because she was like, let's just try one more time. Maybe you'll like break your water or something.
Drop it down
like,
low.
Yeah, like let's try something, because I did tell her. I opened up to her and I was like, okay, girl, I'm a little nervous about the C-section thing, and I'm scared because what if I just waited one more day and I would go into labor?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I did want that VBAC. So she's like, all right, let's dance, let's do this and that, and you know, nothing happened. We went to bed. So woke up at 6 a.m. with my diaper bag and, you know, hospital bag, and we went in there. We didn't wait for long. I had a paper to fill out, and then they got us into like this little triage room. We were only in there for about an hour, and I spoke to the doctors. I spoke to the nurse that would take care of me postpartum. I spoke to the anesthesiologist who gave me all of these he gave me all of these options on how to not feel the pain, and I was I told them I had an emergency C-section the first time, and I felt stuff. Oof. And it hurt really bad. I don't want to feel a thing. So he was super informative and told me everything and all my options as far as, you know, anesthetics. Mm-hmm. Okay. Told me all of my options as far as the medication to not feel. We go in there, I see all of these people, and then they're like, okay, are you ready to have your baby? And I'm like, I guess so.
I don't have a choice.
Here we go, yeah, and I'm feeling like really, really nervous, just so nervous, and I'm thinking that they're gonna pop up the bed and like roll me out. They're like, come on, and I'm like, I'm walking into the OR, like that is so weird,
right?
And they had these little pink and blue baby footprints, and they're like, just follow the footprints, and so they're walking behind me and holding. I had already been like, had an IV bag and everything. So Zach was getting geared up, and I went into the operating room, and he had to stay out until I was, you know, laid out on the table. And, you know, I don't know if they, you know, they put the thing over me, and this scares me because I don't know the answer to this, but I don't know if I had panties on, and I could not feel my legs, so I don't know if my legs were apart or open, and it scares me. All those people in that room, and I don't know what they saw.
Girl.
What?
Wait.
Oh, yeah. You had a bachelor, so I guess they see everything.
I
don't know if they put like a blanket down, and I was like, oh, don't look down there. I can't even remember if I shaved or anything, but in that moment, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, man, so after I got the, you know, the medicine put in my back or whatever, and then they laid me down, he stuck me with a needle here and said, okay, tell me if you feel that on the other side of, you know, the quilt, you know, the sheet that's in front of my face. So then I was like, feel what? And then so he laughed, everyone in the room laughed, and was like, okay, I guess she's ready to go. Aww. And then he did say to me before we went into the room, with this medicine that I'm going to give you, some people's reaction is to be nauseous. Ooh. I need you to tell me if you're going to throw up, because I can give you some medication to counteract that nausea and you won't throw up. So I started to get really nervous.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, girl, yeah. So he was like, just tell me every time that you feel nauseous, and I'll have a couple seconds to go ahead and give you a few, whatever, drops in your bag or whatever it is. So I did keep telling him, and right before, he kept giving me more and more medication, and then right before they were going to cut, I grabbed the nurse's arm like this, and y'all remember, I can't move. I'm laying on my back throwing up. And she turns my head and she's like, you're okay, you're okay. And I'm grabbing her arm and I'm like, please, help, please. She's like, you're talking, so you're fine, just, and she's got like a bag and she's literally like going like this with my vomit. Like helping me get it.
No.
Yes.
Sis, how did I not know that?
This is, I wasn't sure. When we shared birthing stories, it was right after the babies were born.
You did not tell me.
It was right after the babies were born, and I hadn't really seen you in a while, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to know that part. No, I don't care. You can know. But yeah, it was terrifying, and doctors were trying to talk to her, how's mom doing? And she's like, wait. Like, she's throwing, please don't cut her open yet.
Right.
She's, you know, whatever.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Girl, oh my God. Hold on.
What did Zach do?
He wasn't in the room yet.
Oh, okay. Thank God.
Yeah, he wasn't in the room yet whenever I was throwing up. So then she got me settled. He gave me the medication to settle me, and he's like, you okay? My eyes are watering. I'm laying down and just threw up. Like, I can feel it. Oh, just disgusting. So Zach comes in, and they're ready to go, and probably a few minutes later is when the mats came out.
Aww.
And he was born, yeah. And I knew that something was wrong because I didn't hear him crying, and the doctors, I remember I could see where they were in that little, like, bassinet thing that they weigh them at and wipe them off. I could see them, and everybody was really quiet, and everything was kind of quiet, and I kept saying, what's wrong? And those about 6 nurses around him helped him breathe. He wasn't breathing for the first 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And you would never know it. Nobody answered me. Zach's hands were so sweaty, and he was standing up, like, watching, and he was, like, rubbing my head, like, God. And I'm like, what's wrong? I'm like, what's wrong?
What guys do? Like, I don't want you to, like, smack my head.
I know. And his clammy hands were all over my head, and, like, patting my forehead, slapping my forehead, like, brushing my hair back. And I'm like, what's wrong? Nobody answers me, and then they're like, okay, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, here we go. And then I hear him cry, and they swaddle him up and bring him over. You would never know that those 6 people were saving my baby's life, the way that they just worked together, and there was no panic. You would think that people would be like, he's not breathing,
Right.
I need the tube, I need the this, you know. But they weren't. They all just stayed very calm and everything, and they told me afterwards that because Max was a planned C-section and he hadn't gone through any sort of labor or drop from the water break, that he was in shock. He was like, what the fuck? So he swallowed a bunch of, like, fluid and everything, like poo and everything. So
man,
that's what happened. Yeah, poor
Yeah,
guy.
that
He was
too.
like, what the fuck? What is happening?
Aw, he's cute.
Yeah. Sorry. And to this day, he's almost there, Jack.
The bubbles.
Scared of everything. Yeah, girl. It was kind of, you know, everything went fine, and I wouldn't take back my planned seats. So that's my kind of story right before he was born and right when he was born. So tell me about I want to know your whole labor story.
Okay.
Everything, how you felt, what your husband was doing, who was there. Tell us all.
Okay. So Tyler and I had agreed prior to that we were just going to have it me and him. We just wanted it to be a more intimate thing, especially if this could possibly be our last child.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, so we get there around 12. They have to do the IV. That was the worst part of the whole experience.
Why? Your IV, you pushed a whole baby out and you don't like an IV?
I don't do needles.
Oh.
This poor nurse, she probably hated me. She tried over and over, but I got so scared my veins kept going back in.
Oh, dang.
And so she's like, okay, I'm going to get someone else to come do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't help it. I'm scared. Like, to me, that hurts.
Yeah.
And so they finally get the
To
IV.
me, that hurts.
It does.
Oh my gosh. In the
I
hand,
can't even look at a picture with someone who has
another girl in.
Yeah, and she gets my IV in, and then they start the Pitocin. And so I'm like, okay. I came fully prepared because I knew I was probably going to be in labor for a while. I know a lot of people who are induced, it takes a long time.
Right.
So I set up my little table there. I got the office on. We brought our fire stick.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think Tyler ended up having to run back home for something at some point during the day.
Okay.
I set up all my makeup on my little table. I did my makeup.
Oh. You're gonna look good for your princess.
Yeah. I did not look good. But anyway, the pictures of right after I had Aria, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to ever see these.
Oh, stop.
But yeah, I was in labor for about 7 hours total.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, with the induction? That is insane.
Yeah, they kept checking me.
That's so good.
And because I had gone through it before, I knew what my body was doing. Like I knew.
That's so awesome.
Doctor broke my water probably at about 4 o'clock. And at that point, I was like, okay, I need my epidural. I wasn't in a lot of pain at that point, but I knew once they break your water, it happens very quickly. Mm-hmm. Thank God I got it when I did, because when she started sticking that needle in my back, I was like, oh my God, this hurts.
Oh man.
Yeah, they gave me my epidural, so that was probably about 5. And then at that point, we started having our moms roll in. So my mom got there just to hang out for a little bit. And then shortly after Tyler's mom got there, I think she had just come from out of town working or something.
Okay.
So they hung out for probably about 30 minutes, and I tried, because I didn't want to kick them out as soon as they got there, so I could feel, I had my epidural, but I could start feeling those contractions again. I was like, all right, it's time. That's how I knew it was time with Ava.
Okay.
And so my contractions are getting worse and worse, and I'm like holding on for dear life on this bed, just trying to let everyone enjoy their time. I'm like, you guys gotta go.
You finally did say you don't
yeah.
have to leave.
And they're like, okay, so the nurse comes in, and sure enough, I start having this baby right at shift change. So I have every single nurse on the floor in my room, day and night. And I'm like apologizing to the nurse that's been with me all day. I was like, I know you're so ready to go home. I'm really sorry. And I'm prepared.
Oh.
At this point, I'm starting to cry because what am I trying to say? I pushed for a very, very long time with my oldest. And it's painful when you have to push, especially when you're feeling those contractions. And so I'm like, I'm not, like, I don't want to do this.
And exhausting, right?
It is. And so I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I start crying, not because of the pain, just because I'm like working myself up in my head.
You think it's going to be, oh
what's
God.
wrong? And so they're like, okay, go ahead, start pushing. And so I push, and immediately they're like, oh, the baby's there. And I'm like, don't start this. Because that's exactly what they said to me the entire time I was pushing with Ava.
Oh,
the entire hour and a half. Oh, her head's right there. It's one more push. And I'm like, I was getting mad. I was like, don't even start.
Yeah. Now you like don't trust them. You're
yeah.
like, I'll believe it when I see her in front of me.
And nurses do this, and I hate that they do this. They're like, oh, look, or feel. Oh, Dad, look. And I'm like, we're not doing this.
You don't like that?
I don't want to mirror. I don't want to feel it. I don't want him to feel it or look at it. We're good. Let us know when the baby's out. And so they're like, okay, push again. Before my mom and mother-in-law could even get settled in the waiting room, the noise is playing, and they look at I only know this because of the story they told, but they looked at each other and they're like, there's no way, right? But yeah, sure enough, she was here within 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
I think I pushed 2 or 3 times.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. So you just get better and faster with giving birth with each kid that you have.
Yeah.
For me, it was like the same thing. I wasn't dilating. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That really is.
Except my water broke with Ava.
Okay.
But I mean, my water might have broke if I got to that point with Aria, but
right.
I didn't get that far.
Under different circumstances.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So you only pushed for about 5 minutes?
Yeah. I think I started pushing at 7, and she was born at like 7:08.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, I started pushing like right at shift change. I was like,
I bet they were so happy that you were a fast go.
I'm like, girl, have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But we had so many people in there just because it was right there. So I had nurses that were coming in to introduce themselves to me. I'm like, here's my vagina. Hi.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Welcome.
Yeah. Oh.
But it was a good experience. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Tyler cut the cord, but I don't remember that part. And then once everything got settled, we had an hour just to ourselves, and our families were so on edge. They were like, what's happening? Like, we haven't heard anything for 2 hours, because we didn't start letting people in the room until about 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So I had her at 7, and like we weren't on our phones either, so like no one knew what was going on. It was an amazing experience. I would do it over and over.
I know. Isn't it so amazing?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love my story with Maddox too.
Yeah.
So when Maddox was okay and they wrapped him up and brought him over to me, when you have a C-section, they're wrapped up. The operating room is so cold. It has to be. So there's no skin to skin yet, and they just kind of, you're laying there and you can't move, so they just try to bring them right up to your face. And so I'm like, just like rubbing my cheek on his, and I'm kissing him, and I'm talking to him. Oh God, I didn't know I was gonna cry. This is just,
okay.
It's hard. Thanks. Max, because he was born having an issue breathing, they were like, we've got to take him to the NICU now. We've got to monitor him. So he had to leave, and I was so scared because they didn't give me all the details right then and there. So I wasn't sure, like, is he good, or y'all still got to make sure he's good? What's
right.
good?
What's good?
So, they sewed me up and everything. It took about 45 minutes, and then they wheel me into the postpartum room, and he's not there, and Zach isn't there either. And I'm talking to the nurse, and she was the best. I'm like, when can I see my baby? And she's like, as soon as your medication wears off and you can get up and get yourself to a wheelchair, I will bring you to your baby.
Oh.
So I start, like, I'm trying to move my legs. I'm trying to get that feeling back. I'm trying to squinch my toes. I'm like, I'm going to see my baby.
Yeah.
And Zach comes in, he's like, hey. I'm like, hey, how is he? Oh, he's great. They just have him hooked up and everything, and it's fine. And that's when the nurse was like, all right, so yeah, as I'm sure you know, Dad, but I'm just going to explain to Mom what happened. That's when they told me that he was just in a state of shock when he was born. And then it was probably like an hour later, or maybe an hour and a half later, is when my in-laws all came. My mother-in-law was first with her husband and Zach's grandma, and it surprised me when I said it, but I was like, if you guys want to go to the NICU and see him, you can. And I had not even held him, but I was like, he needs to be around people. So I sent them down. I don't know what that was like. I wasn't there. But when they came back, that's when everybody came in, and they hung out with me for a little bit, and then they left. And then my nurse got a call from the NICU, and I could hear the nurse on the phone. She goes, hey, he's doing okay, but I think that he's getting hungry. He's starting to eat his fists a little bit and start to fuss. Aww. So we're gonna bring him to Mom, but he needs to stay monitored. Is she okay and ready to feed him? So I'm like, yes, I am. And I'm like taking off my thing, and I'm like, yes, here we go. I was so ready. And I got really nervous, like that same feeling when you're laying into bed before you go, have your baby at the hospital, where you're like, oh, my life is about to change. I was so ready. I said, my breastfeeding journey starts now. They are bringing him to me, and here we go. I'm gonna latch him. And I'm thinking all the YouTube videos and things that I watched on breastfeeding, I'm like, okay, I gotta calm down. So when they brought him to me, they kind of unhooked him from whatever monitor he was on. They brought him to me. They're like, okay, Mom, we're gonna do some skin to skin. As soon as they put him on me, he literally like falls and latches. And I'm like, awesome. Like his head, yes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So the lactation consultant that came to drop him off was like, Mom, relax your shoulders. And she kept doing that. She's like, relax your shoulders every time, because he kept falling off. And every time that he would latch, she'd be like, relax your shoulders. It was like such a good experience. And so I've got Zach right there, and Zach had tears in his eyes, and he's like, you're doing it, because I didn't with Ryder very well. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. So he kept falling off, and so she said, okay, maybe he's tired. Let's bring him back up to your chest. And he does it again with this side. He literally falls over and like latches on. So he kept falling off though. So she got me a nipple shield and was like, this will be your best friend. I'm like, thanks, girl. Nobody showed me that.
I feel like people try to discourage using nipple shields. Like that was like a last resort with both my, first of all, I didn't play that game. I had pre-ordered nipple shields before. But everyone, like, it was like a last resort with Ava, and I'm like, you see the issues I'm having. Like, I have flat nipples. Like,
me too.
Just to let y'all know.
I was so serious. Me too.
Yeah. So, you see I'm having issues. Why not offer that? And I guess it's because it's hard to, like, wean them off. But, like, if it works, why are you going to wean them?
I know people that do it for, like, the full 6 or 8 months or however long they breastfeed. I don't see a problem with it. It is a little bit of a task. It's not just boop, boop, you know,
exactly.
it's, you've got to, but that's my decision. And at least my baby's getting it, you know what I mean? And as soon as she showed me with that, he did really well.
Yeah.
He was like,
It's easy,
he loved it. Yeah. It, I don't think they have to fight as much, but I don't know why that's an issue. I'm the same way. Like, just give it to me if you see my baby's falling off.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, when she gave me the nipple shield, he wasn't falling off anymore, and I was
That's awesome.
feeding him, and it just felt really good. I kept, like, breathing, and she kept telling me to put my shoulders down, and that was 3 hours after he was born.
That's amazing.
3 hours after he was born was the first time that I got skin to skin with my baby.
Okay, that's not amazing.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that he was latching so fast.
It was, you know, it was. And you know my story, and that's why my breastfeeding story, you know it, and this is something we would love to share with you guys. So like this video right now if you would like to hear our breastfeeding journeys, because sometimes the way it starts out isn't always the way that it ends, but any amount of breastfeeding is good for your baby. Anyways, yeah, so it took me for 3 hours before I could hold my baby, and that was like the hardest thing. But like I said, I really don't give it back. You know, he was healthy, he was fine, everything was fine. But that was hard, but to have that come in and everything is fine. And I remember thinking, he's gonna grow like before he gets to see me.
Aww.
I wanted him to be tiny, and he was very tiny. He was so sweet too. Goodness. Everybody kept saying he looks just like you and Chuck. My dad, he looks just like you and Chuck. Now I think he looks like my husband, but
I think it looks like you.
nonetheless, he's so handsome. He's so cute. So what was your first, like, you're holding her, did they tell you, hey, why don't we try feeding her? Or were you just like, oh, I think she needs to eat?
I honestly can't remember. I think maybe I made the decision, okay, I'm just gonna try and feed her, because I was pretty determined. I wanted to breastfeed. So I think that's just something we tried at first.
So you were ready. You were like, let's try this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I asked, like, oh, is it okay if I try and, like, let her latch? And of course they were like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I feel like she latched on pretty easily at first without, like, any nipple shield or anything. So I was really surprised with that, and it got my hopes up. I was like, yes.
I know, yeah. God, these freaking babies.
I know. But I mean, overall, yeah, it was a good experience. The second night, it wasn't as easy though. They were gonna let me go home like the day after I had her, and I was like, I kind of want to stay. Like, one more night of help is
absolutely,
yeah.
And let's not forget, these are not our first babies.
No.
So when we go home, we're going home to a mommy of 2, and that is definitely nerve-wracking.
Yes.
So your stay was 2 days?
2 nights, yeah.
Okay, my stay was 4 days, 3 nights. Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know with how it is when you have a vaginal birth, but when you have a C-section, one of the things that they want to see you do before you can leave is have bowel movement.
Oh yeah.
So is it the same with vaginal birth?
Yeah.
And was your, okay, so for me, it was really, really hard after Ryder, like painful, like I wasn't even pushing all the way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like fake pushing. But for Max, I did it the same day with no problem. Yeah. And I don't know if
I was so proud.
I was like, I am like
amazing.
I felt so empowered. I was like, I am a beast at C-section recovery. Look at me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. I was like, I'm like over here pooping, you know? I'm like telling the nurse, I pooped. Yep, same day. Had my C-section 4 hours ago and I pooped.
I was the opposite. I don't know why. I have a big bladder, I guess. I don't know. I don't have to pee often. And my nurse was like, you had your baby like 4 hours ago and you haven't gotten up to pee. And I was like, I don't have to go. And she said, okay, well, I'm not bringing you your medicine until you go pee. And I'm like, so I was like,
that's so weird. You cannot be mad at Ava then, because you don't like to go pee either.
I don't pee my pants. That's the difference. I don't have accidents anymore.
Oh, gosh. Did you catheter?
They had taken it out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I asked them to take it out.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I love catheters. I love them so much. You don't know when you're going, and it's just fine. You don't have to get up because once I take it out, and I pee a lot, and I was drinking lots of water and Under Armour and fluids because I'm like, come on, breast milk. You know what I mean? I have one last question.
Okay.
When did your milk supply come in? Because I know that for women that have a vaginal birth, it usually comes in a lot quicker because your body knows the baby's out and needs milk. But for a C-section, your body's kind of tricked for a couple of days, and it sometimes takes a little bit longer, sometimes like 4 to 7 days to get your breast milk. So I got my breast milk the day that I left the hospital, so he was 4 days old.
Okay. I think mine was around the same time. The first time I could tell it was actually milk and not the colostrum.
Oh yeah.
Was once we got
hard
home.
Not to tell. I thought something was wrong. And I went into the shower. I'm so stupid. I went into the shower, started massaging it because I thought I had a clogged duct or like mastitis. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm massaging all of my baby's milk out.
In the shower.
Yeah, just letting it go down the drain. Like it's not liquid gold or something, and I'm just letting it go down the drain.
Man,
I'm just like, I did a couple of things while I was breastfeeding that I wish maybe I hadn't done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh my God. And that's one of them. But that is, yeah.
No, I never got to that point. But I mean, I could definitely feel something, but it was never like, oh my God, I'm so full. Oh my God, this hurts so bad. Oh my God, I need to get it out.
Mine didn't hurt, but it looked like something was wrong. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. That was our labor and delivery stories and our birthing experiences. I hope that
our breastfeeding tangent.
Oh yeah, we did go on a little bit of a tangent. But that would actually be a really good video. So go ahead and like this video if you would like to see our breastfeeding journeys. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.